My name is Eleanor Shaw, and I've spent most of my adult life chasing stories that don't belong to me. I'm not a reporter, not exactly, more like a collector of forgotten people. I write about small towns, the ones that don't make it into travel guides or history books, places where silence grows thicker than gossip. Last spring, I found myself in a place called Ashbourne Hollow, a valley tucked between two sleeping mountains in northern Vermont. You wouldn't find it on any modern map. It was the kind of place GPS gives up on halfway there. The reason I went wasn't the landscape, though. It was a man, or rather, the memory of one. His name was Dr. Arthur Bellamy, a once promising writer and historian who had vanished 50 years ago, leaving behind a single unfinished manuscript that no one had ever found. The locals said it contained the truth about the hollow, whatever that meant. A small-town librarian named Mrs. Penrose had sent me a letter a few months earlier. She'd written, "If you want a story that hasn't been told, come here. The hollow remembers." So I came. Ashbourne Hollow wasn't dead, but it was close. Half the houses stood empty, their paint peeling and porches sagging under years of rain. The people who still lived there moved slowly, like the air itself was heavier. The inn where I stayed was run by an elderly couple, the Harts. They gave me the attic room, low ceilings, a cracked window, and a single bed that creaked like it had opinions. On my first morning, I walked to the library. It was small, just 2 rooms and a smell that reminded me of old pine and forgotten paper. That's where I met Mrs. Penrose. She was in her 70s, short, with silver hair pinned neatly, and a voice that carried the weight of both kindness and warning. "You're the writer?" she asked, as if the word itself was suspicious. I nodded. "Then you'll want to see the archives." The archives turned out to be a damp basement filled with dusty boxes. Inside one of them, wrapped in brittle brown paper, was what I had come for, or at least part of it. A thin leather journal with the initials A.B. burned into the cover. The first page read, "This is not history, it is confession." That night, I stayed up reading by the flicker of a candle. Bellamy's handwriting was neat, deliberate, the kind of script that made you trust it. He wrote about moving to Ashbourne Hollow in 1929, about studying its people, its strange customs, its obsession with secrecy. He mentioned something he called the pact, but the journal ended mid-sentence. "They told me the truth lives beneath." Then nothing. The next day, I asked Mrs. Penrose about the pact. She went still, like a deer hearing a distant branch crack. Finally, she said, "Some truths are better left buried, Miss Shaw, especially in this place." When I pressed her, she changed the subject, offering me tea instead. That evening, while I sat by the inn's fireplace, Mr. Hart came over. He looked nervous. "You're digging into the Bellamy story, ain't you?" he said. I nodded. He leaned closer and whispered, "If you're smart, you'll leave it alone. That man didn't vanish. He was taken." I didn't sleep that night. Every time the wind hit the window, it sounded like a whisper. I kept thinking about that last sentence in Bellamy's journal. The truth lives beneath. Beneath what? The ground? The village? The people? By morning, curiosity had turned into obsession. I went back to the library, and Mrs. Penrose finally sighed and said, "If you really must know, there's a woman up by the old church hill, Martha Bellamy, Arthur's granddaughter. She keeps the rest of his papers, or what's left of them." So I went. The road to the hill was narrow and lined with birch trees. The house at the top looked forgotten, windows shuttered, ivy crawling over the stone. I knocked. No answer. I was about to turn back when the door opened. A woman stood there, maybe in her 40s, pale, sharp-eyed, with ink stains on her fingers. "You're not from here," she said. "No," I admitted. "I'm here about your grandfather." Her eyes flickered. "Everyone comes here for him. They all leave." Then slowly, she opened the door wider. "Come in, if you're brave enough." Inside, the air smelled of paper and damp earth. Books and old boxes were stacked everywhere. On the wall hung a faded photograph. A man in a suit with deep, thoughtful eyes. Arthur Bellamy. Martha motioned for me to sit. She said, "People think he went mad, wrote something dangerous. But what he found wasn't madness, it was truth, and truth can ruin people." I asked what happened to him. She didn't answer directly. She just said, "He disappeared the same night the ground opened near the river. Some said it was an earthquake. Others said it was the hollow taking back what was stolen." Then she handed me a small envelope. Inside was another fragment of the manuscript, a single page written in trembling handwriting. It said, "If anyone reads this, don't look for the hollow's heart. It beats beneath the old well, and it remembers every lie." That night, the wind howled harder than ever. Somewhere outside, a door slammed, though everyone in the inn was asleep. I dreamed of a well, deep, endless, whispering my name. When I woke up, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't leaving Ashbourne Hollow, not until I found what Arthur Bellamy had died trying to tell. I didn't plan to stay in Ashbourne Hollow more than a week. But after that night, after the dream of the whispering well, I couldn't leave. Something in me felt tied to this place, like invisible roots had wrapped around my feet. Every morning, fog rolled down from the hills and filled the streets like pale smoke. The hollow never seemed to wake fully. It just shifted from one dream to another. People watched me quietly, as if they knew why I was here, and didn't approve. The hearts grew distant. Mr. Hark, who had been friendly at first, now only nodded when I passed. His wife stopped leaving breakfast outside my door. It felt like the town had silently decided I'd crossed a line. Still, I went back to Martha Bellamy's house almost every day. She was reluctant at first, but curiosity is contagious. She began to talk more. She told me her grandfather wasn't always a recluse. He had been beloved, respected, until he started writing The Hollow's Heart, his final book. Then people turned on him. They said he was exposing secrets that weren't his to tell, she said one afternoon, sorting through a box of letters. "What kind of secrets?" I asked. "The kind people would kill to protect." Her words hung in the room like dust. One evening, as the last light faded from her windows, I asked if she'd ever seen the well her grandfather mentioned. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It's real, but no one goes near it. My father said it's cursed. That's where Arthur heard the whispers. He thought they were voices from the earth, the ancestors of the hollow, calling to him." I tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. "Do you believe that?" She looked out the window. "I believe he believed it, and maybe that's enough to make it real." That night, I couldn't resist. I left the inn just after midnight, taking only a flashlight and Bellamy's journal. The path to the old riverbank was faint, almost erased by time. Crickets stopped singing when I passed. When I found the well, I knew it instantly. It stood half buried in weeds, its stones slick with moss, its wooden cover broken. The air around it was colder than the rest of the forest, unnaturally so. I leaned closer, shining the light down into the dark. At first, I saw nothing but water, black and still. Then, movement. Not like ripples, but shapes. For a moment, I thought I saw faces, blurred like reflections in broken glass. And then, I heard it, a voice, soft and die, and then I heard it, a voice, soft and distant, rising from the deep. Eleanor. I froze. The voice was faint, almost a breath, but it said my name. Not once, twice. Eleanor, you shouldn't have come. The flashlight flickered, and for a second, the darkness below seemed alive, moving, pulsing. I stumbled back, heart hammering. My shoe slipped, and I fell to my knees. The journal tumbled from my hands, landing near the edge. I reached for it, but the ground beneath me shifted, just slightly, like something was breathing under the soil. That was enough. I grabbed the journal, ran through the trees, and didn't stop until I reached the inn. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed, shaking, staring at the journal. When dawn came, I noticed something strange. The pages I'd read before now looked different. The ink seemed darker, fresher, as if rewritten overnight. One line had appeared that I swore wasn't there before. It said, "The Hollow knows your name." The next morning, I went back to Martha's. She took one look at my face and knew something had happened. "You went there," she whispered. "I heard it," I said. "I heard something. It said my name." Martha went pale. "You shouldn't have gone alone. You've woken it." "Woken what?" I asked. She didn't answer. She pulled open a drawer and took out a small wooden box. Inside was a piece of cloth, old, stained with what looked like dried ink or maybe blood. "This was found after my grandfather vanished," she said. "He used it to wipe his hands the night he finished writing the last chapter. He said the ink wasn't his." I stared at her. I mean," she said quietly, "that what he found at the bottom of that well wasn't water." That night, thunder rolled through the valley. The inn's walls shuddered with each strike. I thought about leaving, packing my bag, catching the first bus out. But I couldn't, because deep down, I didn't believe in curses, or ghosts, or wells that whisper. I believed in truth, and whatever the Hollow was hiding, I needed to know. When the rain stopped, I took out the journal again. Something told me to read it aloud. As I spoke the words, the air seemed to shift. The candle flickered violently, and I heard a faint knocking from the floorboards beneath me. I froze. The knocking grew louder. 3 taps. Pause. Then 3 more. I whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. Then one last tap, directly beneath my chair. The next morning, I went to find Martha again, but her house was empty. The front door was open, the kettle still worn, and her boots missing. On the table lay a note. "Don't follow me, Eleanor. Some truths aren't for outsiders." That was 3 days ago. She hasn't been seen since. And every night since then, when I try to sleep, I hear that same knocking beneath my floor. Always 3 times. Always before midnight. It's been 5 days since Martha vanished. 5 days of pretending everything's normal. Ordering coffee at the diner. Smiling at Mrs. Hart when she asks if I'm sleeping well. Walking past townspeople who look through me instead of at me. I've started to notice things I missed before, like how the same 3 men always seem to be standing near the post office, or how the librarian locks the reading room door the moment I walk in, or how the street lamps near my inn flicker off, only mine, every night at exactly 10:40. Something's wrong here, and I think Martha knew it before she disappeared. Yesterday, I went back to her house. The sheriff had sealed it, but I slipped around back. Inside, the air smelled faintly of earth and rain. I moved through the rooms quietly, calling her name once, just to hear it echo. In her study, I found something new. A notebook. Not the old leather journal of her grandfather, but something more recent. Its first page was dated 3 weeks ago. She'd written, "They're still down there. The hollow isn't just a place, it's a hunger." The rest of the pages were torn out. That night, I sat by my window, watching the road that wound toward the woods. Around midnight, I saw headlights, one car, moving slowly. It stopped at the edge of town, near the turnoff that leads to the Bellamy house. The lights stayed on for several minutes, then flicked off. When I looked again, the car was gone, but the faint outline of someone standing near the tree line remained, just standing, watching my window. Sleep was impossible. I packed my bag the next morning, intending to leave, but when I went to the bus stop, the driver shook his head. "Roads closed," he said. "Mudslide last night. Could be days before they clear it." I didn't believe him. The sun was shining. There hadn't been any rain since Tuesday. But his expression, blank, too calm, told me to stop asking questions. So I walked instead, past the diner, past the post office, past the sign that read, "Welcome to Ashbourne Hollow, founded 1884. I ended up near the old church on the hill, the one I'd always thought was abandoned. The door creaked open before I touched it. Inside, candles burned, dozens of them, and on the altar, a photograph of Arthur Bellamy, Martha's grandfather. His face was marked with red ink. Around the photo, old pages from his book were scattered, each one scrawled over with the same symbol, a circle split by a jagged line. And below the photo, written in thick, uneven handwriting, were 3 words: "The hollow feeds." I backed away slowly, heart pounding. My hand brushed against something cold, a chain hanging from the wall. I looked down. It wasn't a chain. It was a necklace, Martha's necklace, the one she never took off. That night, I wrote everything down, every sound, every strange detail. I didn't know who I was writing for, myself or whoever might come after me. Around midnight, I heard the knocking again, 3 times. But this time, there was another sound after it. A voice, faint but clear, rising from the floor. "Eleanor, help me." I dropped the pen. The voice came again, weaker now, trembling. "Please, it's cold." It was Martha. I ran to the floorboards and pressed my ear down. The sound was distant but real, a muffled cry coming from beneath the house. I grabbed the flashlight, pushed aside the rug, and found a hatch I'd never noticed before. Small, iron, half-rusted shut. It took all my strength to pry it open. A ladder led down into the dark. The air smelled like earth and damp wood. I hesitated only a moment, then climbed down. The passage was narrow, the walls slick with moisture. My light flickered as I descended. I could hear faint water dripping somewhere ahead. At the bottom was a tunnel, man-made, lined with stone. It stretched forward into blackness. And then I saw her, Martha, sitting against the wall, knees drawn up, eyes wide open. But she wasn't looking at me. She was staring past me, into the darkness behind. "Martha," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "It's me, Eleanor." She blinked slowly, her lips moved. "Too late," she murmured. It woke up. I turned the flashlight behind me and froze. The tunnel wasn't empty anymore. The stone walls seemed to ripple, like something was moving beneath them. The sound of breathing filled the air, deep, heavy, endless. Then, from the dark ahead, came a whisper. "Eleanor." My flashlight went out. When I woke up, I was lying on the ground outside the inn. It was morning. The sun was up, birds singing, everything looking normal again, almost too normal. My hands were dirty, my clothes damp, and the journal was gone. No one believed me when I asked about Martha. The sheriff said she'd left town to visit relatives. Mrs. Hart said there was never a Bellamy house in the first place. But last night, I found something under my bed, a single torn page, written in Martha's handwriting. It said, "The Hollow never lets go." I used to think silence meant safety. Now it's the sound I fear most. It's been 2 weeks since Martha vanished. 2 weeks since I climbed out of that tunnel and woke up outside the inn with dirt under my nails and blood on my sleeve. I don't remember how I got there. I don't even remember the climb. But the Hollow remembers. I hear it sometimes, in the pipes, in the wind that slips through the cracks of my window. It hums low, like a song sung through water. The townspeople still pretend nothing happened. They smile too quickly, speak too softly. Every time I mention the Bellamy family, the air thickens, as if the very name offends the soil. So I've stopped asking. Now, I listen instead. It started 3 nights ago. I'd left my recorder running while I wrote notes. I do that now, to keep track of what's real and what's dream. When I played it back later, I heard something strange. Between my own words, my voice reading from the journal. There was another voice, faint, echoing, layered under mine. At first, I thought it was static. But then, it said something clearly. "Eleanor, tell them the truth." I replayed the file over and over until my throat went dry. I didn't remember saying those words, and yet it was my voice. The next morning, I took the recorder to the diner and asked one of the locals, Sam, if he could listen. He frowned the moment I pressed play. After a few seconds, he handed it back, pale. "Where'd you get this?" he asked. "It's just me," I said. "I recorded it last night." He shook his head. "That ain't you. That's the Hollow speaking through you." Then he left his coffee half full and walked out. That night, I locked the door, closed the curtains, and tried not to move. But around midnight, the recorder turned itself on. No light, no button pressed, just the faint red glow of the record symbol blinking in the dark. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. The next morning, I played it back. For 30 minutes, there was only silence. Then, footsteps, soft, slow, circling my bed, and my voice, whispering, "They're waiting under the well." I haven't been able to sleep since. Every reflection, the window, the mirror, even the kettle, shows my face. But the eyes don't follow when I move. They lag behind half a second late. I'm scared to blink. This morning, when I went downstairs, Mrs. Hart stopped me. She looked tired, older somehow. "Eleanor," she said quietly, "people who stay too long in the Hollow start to fade." "Fade," I repeated. She nodded. Not gone, just replaced. Then she pressed something into my hand, a small brass key. "Go to the church," she said. "Under the altar. You'll find what the Hollow took from you. Under the altar." The church looked abandoned again when I arrived. No candles, no photographs this time, just dust and silence. I knelt before the altar, found the lock, and turned the key. A hatch opened with a sigh, like the earth exhaling. Inside was a box. Inside the box, my recorder. But it was playing by itself. The voice was mine, but the words weren't. "You came here to write a story, Eleanor." Now you are the story. The sound of water followed, slow dripping, like tears hitting stone. Then a breath, too close to the microphone. Look behind you. I turned. Nothing. Just the church's empty pews and the door swinging slightly from the wind. I laughed, half out of fear, half out of madness. But when I looked back at the altar, the box was gone, and carved into the wood where it had been were 3 words, the same ones I'd seen weeks ago. The hollow feeds. I don't know how long I've been here now. Days blur into one another. The townspeople don't speak to me anymore. Some cross the street when they see me coming. Others just stare. I've started hearing the well again, even from miles away. A low pulse under everything. When I close my eyes, I see water. Not calm, not still, but moving, swirling, like it's trying to breathe. Last night, I dreamt of Martha. She was standing beside the well, smiling softly. "It's not over," she said. Then she reached out her hand, and the water pulled her under. I woke up gasping. My pillow was wet, though I don't know from what. This morning, I finally decided to leave. Packed my things, walked down to the bus stop. And there it was, a sign, freshly painted. Welcome to Ashbourne Hollow. Population 147. The number looked new. When I arrived, it was 146. If anyone finds this recording, don't come here. If you hear a voice calling your name from the well, don't answer. If your reflection lingers, don't look back. And if you ever pass through a town that feels like it's waiting for you, keep driving. Because sometimes the stories we chase don't want to be told. Sometimes they just want to keep telling us.